Hey guys, what's up? This is Attorney Chloe Corbett, also known as the Duchess of Justice. I am one half of the Defiant Lawyers YouTube show here on YouTube. You might notice something different. I'm here by myself today. Isn't that exciting, guys? I don't have my dad and partner here with me today, but I did want to film this video to talk about a topic that has been trending in the news. And it's something that we are personally aware of because we're litigating this topic. And I'll get to that in a second. But first, let me introduce myself because I know some of you may have not have seen my face before. So you may be wondering, who is she? Well, like I said, my name is Chloe Corbett. I'm a practicing attorney here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I do a lot of civil rights, personal injury, criminal defense cases. And I am one half of the Defiant Lawyers. We provide legal analysis of trending politics, policies, personalities, and pop culture to empower our community to defy this unjust legal system. So let's get into today's topic. Today, I'm going to be talking about banking while black. This is a phenomenon that has been occurring in this country for many, many, many years. You may have heard of something called driving while black. This is a term that has been coined and that has been around in our culture for a number of years. And basically what it is, Black Americans who are driving, who are lawfully driving on our streets and highways are unjustly, unfairly stopped by the police and unfairly targeted when we're driving. And a lot of times it can lead to an arrest because we are black. So this has occurred in all aspects of our lives, whether it be we're at home sleeping, whether we're out shopping, whether we're at the grocery store, whether we're simply at a park. There have been so many times that just being black has been weaponized against us and used against us to be unfairly targeted by law enforcement, by the government, and even private companies. And today, banking while black, we are talking about a private company, a private bank, discriminating against its black patrons simply because they are black. But recently there's been a story where a famous black director, Ryan Coogler, he was the victim of banking while black. And I want to go through all of those details, go through the story with you, analyze it. And then I'm going to briefly talk about our case that we're litigating and what you can do, the legal remedies that you can take if you've ever been a victim of banking while black. So I am going to reference a New York Times article that was written about this incident involving Ryan Coogler. I want to make sure that you all know the timeline and that you all know exactly what happened, okay? So on January 7th, a couple of months ago, Mr. Coogler, who is best known for directing the phenomenal Marvel film Black Panther, was detained and handcuffed as he attempted to withdraw money from his bank account with Bank of America. So let's go through it. Mr. Coogler went to the bank teller line and he handed the teller a withdrawal slip asking for $12,000 in cash. He also had a note with the withdrawal slip where he asked the teller to be, quote, discreet when handing him the cash, end quote. Mr. Coogler also had his California state ID as well as his Bank of America debit card when he approached the teller. The teller then received a notification, an alert notification from Mr. Coogler's account and quickly told her manager that he was trying to rob the bank branch. So let's stop there. Think about this, guys. You are trying to perform a simple transaction. You are trying to get your own money out of your own account. And you think that this is going to be another regular day. This is the situation that Mr. Coogler was in. He goes to the line. Picture yourself going into the line, filling out the withdrawal slip, having your state issued ID, having your debit card, having the transaction with the teller, getting your money, and going about your merry way. Okay? That's how this interaction should have happened. But instead, Mr. Coogler was falsely accused of being a bank robber. And the police were called on him. Imagine that. Imagine thinking that you're just going to have a simple transaction at the bank, but instead, simply because you are black and because the teller discriminates against you on the basis of your race, the police are then called. And we know that when the police are called on black people in this country, oftentimes the interaction is not good. And let's keep it frank. A lot of times it ends in us being hurt or even killed. So when a person calls the police on a black person in this country, especially for a false accusation, they are literally putting that person in harm's way because of the way that the police interacts with black people in this country. Oftentimes we don't get the benefit of the doubt. Oftentimes our stories are not heard. Oftentimes we are not seen credible. And even if we are the victim, even if we are the people that have called the police and the other person is a white person, the police will go to that person first. So this is the situation that Mr. Coogler is in. So the New York Times reports that the police were called, and when they first arrived to the scene, to the bank, they saw an SUV parked in front of the bank. The driver of the SUV identified Mr. Coogler as a movie producer and said that he was waiting for Mr. Coogler while Mr. Coogler was making a transaction inside the bank. There was also another person in the SUV, a woman, who corroborated what the driver said and gave the same information. Instead of taking their word at face value, the driver and the woman are detained. And then the police go inside the bank and they detain and handcuff Mr. Coogler. Now imagine that. You're simply trying to perform your bank transaction, and instead of getting your own money out of your own account, you are put in handcuffs. Imagine the emotional turmoil that comes with that, the emotional distress. And in fact, in this country, at least in the state of Texas, let me narrow it down. In the state of Texas, there is a claim, a cause of action that can be brought against someone or a company when they intentionally inflict emotional distress on a person. So in Texas, Mr. Coogler would have a cause of action against a bank for causing him emotional distress, humiliation, the embarrassment, the shame of knowing that you have done nothing, absolutely nothing wrong, and now you're in handcuffs and you're being walked outside of the bank. This is the situation Mr. Coogler was in. So let's continue. So they walked Mr. Coogler outside, and apparently the officers were given a description of Mr. Coogler that matched the description of the man who was reported to have been trying to rob the bank. So when the teller saw Mr. Coogler, she called the police officers. She gave the police the description of Mr. Coogler because she falsely accused him of trying to rob the bank. The police then say that this episode resulted from a, quote, mistake by Bank of America, and that Mr. Coogler was never in the wrong. The damage has already been done. Because of this so-called mistake, because of this discrimination and racism, Mr. Coogler suffered the humiliation of being placed in handcuffs and being questioned as if he was a bank robber. So what are the legal remedies for someone in Mr. Coogler's position who has been falsely accused of trying to rob a bank or discriminated against at the bank or any other type of company, a restaurant, a gym, etc.? What are the legal remedies? Violations of this type fall under Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act, and I want to get into that. Before we get into the law, let me remind you all that a couple of videos ago, we had our client appear on a video to describe his experience of banking while black. That's going to be linked above. Make sure you go check it out. His name is Preston Coleman. He suffered a similar incident of banking while black while at a major national bank. And he suffered the same humiliation, embarrassment, and emotional distress that Mr. Coogler presumably suffered as well. And we're actually now litigating that case in federal court. What does litigation mean? Litigation means that we have filed a lawsuit against that bank and we are going through the process of holding them accountable in court. So I can't get into too many details about that case because it is pending. It is a pending lawsuit. But we know firsthand the toll that this takes on people to be falsely accused and have the police called on them. So let's go back to the Civil Rights Act. I want to break that down for you all. So Section 1981 was enacted by Congress in 1866. So let's put this act in context. We had just gotten out of the most bloody war in our nation's history, a civil war at that, where the issue of slavery was at the forefront of this war, and the question of who would be on the right side of history. So we had southern states whose economy was primarily based on the enslavement of black bodies and the money those black bodies produced, versus the North, whose economy was not based on slavery. Now, a lot of slave states, a lot of people from the South will try to say that the Civil War was fought over states' rights, and it was a states' rights versus the federal rights issue, that when our founding fathers came over from England, well, when this country's founding fathers came over from England. My founding fathers are from Africa, but you know what I mean. When this country's founding fathers came over from England, they were escaping a monarchy. They were escaping a government that had absolute power, and the people had no power. So this issue of the states' rights, which was more closely seen with being the voice of the people versus the federal government, they try to say that the Civil War was over that. Let's keep it real. The Civil War was over slavery and whether or not slavery would continue in this country. And so after the North defeated the South and the United States was united once again, there was the Reconstruction period, which unfortunately ended pretty quickly because of Lincoln's assassination. But Congress needed to establish the rights of these newly freed people, because keep in mind, black people in this country were not considered human beings, much less a citizen. So all of the rights that white Americans had, we did not have, because we were not even considered human beings by the government in this country. We were seen as 3/5 of a person. So now that we are free, the government needed to establish our rights. And that is where the Civil Rights Act comes into play. So the Civil Rights Act says, all persons within the jurisdiction of the United States shall have the same right in every state and territory to do a few things. 1, to make and enforce contracts. Think of how powerful that is. Because we were not seen as human beings or citizens, we did not have the power to make a contract with someone. We didn't have the power to purchase land, because the exchange of the land and the money, that's a contract. We didn't have the power to rent a home, because that lease is a contract. We didn't have the power to purchase goods. Everyday simple tasks that we take advantage of now that requires some type of contract, newly freed slaves were not able to do that. Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act established that every person born in this jurisdiction in the United States can make a contract and can enforce it. So if someone breaks a contract with that black person, they can go to court and they can have it enforced. That's the first right that was established. 2, the Civil Rights Act gave us the right to be parties to a lawsuit. So now we can be named as a plaintiff. So I could be Plaintiff Chloe Corbett, where I am going to court to hold ABC Corporation accountable for causing my injuries. Before then, we could not hold a corporation accountable if I was injured, if I fell in their store, if they refused to serve me, if they discriminated against me because I'm black. We were given the right to present evidence in court. So me, Plaintiff Chloe, I can now have John Doe come in and testify on my behalf and present evidence. I could now present documents to the judge to show why the judge should rule in my favor. And lastly, this act gave us the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of persons and property as is enjoyed by white people. Think about that, guys. Think about that. We were given the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of our persons. That means for the security of our bodies, for the security of our property that was enjoyed by white citizens. So now we can be secured in our bodies. Our bodies can be secure. Our property can be secure. The same securities that white citizens had, this act gave us. And all persons shall be subject to like punishment, pains, penalties, taxes, licenses, and exactions of every kind, and to no other. So people who violate Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act, we can now sue them in court. So how does a bank transaction, how does discrimination at a bank against a black person, how can we hold the bank accountable under this act? Well, keep in mind, a bank transaction, when you open that account with the bank, you had to sign some documents. There was a contract that was made between you and the bank that you would place your money into the account with this bank, and the bank would give you access to your money to be able to withdraw your money, to be able to deposit money, to be able to trade stocks, to put it in a certificate of deposit. All of that required a contract with the bank. So when Mr. Coogler was denied that his right to that contract that he had with the bank to withdraw money out of his account because on the basis of his race, that bank violated Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act. And he and anyone else in his position can file a complaint against the bank and try to hold the bank accountable. That is why the law is so important for African Americans. That is why we must stand up and make sure that we use all the full range of our rights in this country and full legal remedies in this country. That is why I admire our clients so much and other people who go out and try to hold responsible these discriminatory companies and people who discriminate against us simply for the basis of our race. So Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act is extremely important in holding racist companies and people accountable for their actions. Now, some of you may ask, well, what about police brutality? What about someone who is hurt by the police or even killed? What can help hold the police accountable? Well, that's Section 1983. And 1983 allows plaintiffs to hold the government accountable for the actions of law enforcement. So the Civil Rights Act is really important, and it was enacted over 200 years ago, almost 200 years ago. Okay. And keep in mind, Section 1981 protects those rights that I just said, to make contracts, to sue, to be parties, to be secure in our persons and our properties. It protects us against violations by both the government as well as non-governmental discrimination. Both are held to the same standard under Section 1981. So, guys, if you have been the victim of banking while black, if you know someone who has been the victim of banking while black, who was discriminated against simply because they were black at their bank, tell them to reach out to an attorney. Tell them to reach out to us. We will be more than willing to listen to see whether or not we can help. I hope that people will take what happened to Mr. Coogler and learn from it. And I hope that this video will help you to know what remedies you have under the law if you've been discriminated against in this way. Guys, this has been so fun to impart this knowledge. This is my first video by myself on the Defiant Lawyers show. I hope you've learned something. If you did, go ahead and click the like button. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will be back here on Saturday. My dad and I will be going live, where we're going to give you the tea, honey, on all of the trending legal topics for today. One of the things we're going to be talking about tomorrow is the Jussie Smollett sentencing and how he showed out at his sentence hearing. We're going to be discussing that and much more. So make sure you stay tuned tomorrow afternoon. Come to our YouTube channel. We will be going live. Again, we love you all. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a blessed day. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Take care. Peace.